Officers and all members of the military work extremely hard to keep a stark distinction between themselves and their politics. That's why it's so difficult and rare when they speak out. Men and women of the military swear an oath to the Constitution, not to a specific president. There's even a law in place to stop presidents from using federal troops to enforce domestic policies. It's called the Posse Comitatus Act. But we saw this already during Trump 1.0. If not for people around him, people like Mark Esper, Mark Milley, John Kelly, Jim Mattis, people we may not know about just yet. If not for those men saying no, Donald Trump likely would have used the military against American citizens the first time. According to a book written by now New York Times reporter Michael Bender, quote, Trump wanted to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 and deploy active duty troops to Washington, D.C. amid protests following the murder of George Floyd last May. But then Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, reportedly pushed back, arguing that there were legal constraints on the military interfering in domestic matters. Quote, I said, you're in effing charge, Trump reportedly yelled at Milley, who shouted back, quote, well, I'm not in charge. God damn it, Milley said to others in the room, which included former Attorney General William Barr and former Defense Secretary Mark Esper. Quote, there's a room full of lawyers here. Will someone inform him of my legal responsibilities, end quote. That's where we start the hour with some of our favorite experts and friends. Retired National Guard Major General and member of the National Security Leaders for America, Randy Manner, is here with me at the table for the hour. Chief political columnist, host of the InPolitic podcast for Puck, MSNBC National Affairs Analyst John Heilman's here, and Princeton University professor, MSNBC political analyst Eddie Glaude's here. Let's start in history in case events intervene, as they often do while we're on the air. What does this moment feel like?
I've been trying to find the language, to be honest with you. It feels as if Trump's ambition is now in full view, that the scene has been set. The barbarians are rattling at the gates. The feckless Democrats refuse to defend the country. And the warriors will now sweep in. And the question is, will we play our parts? So it feels as if the ugly underbelly of the country, right, is in full view in some ways, yeah.
It feels predictable. Because
like we should have predicted we'd be here.
Because it was predicted. I mean, you know, in January, February, I was not alone. But I said, you know, look, there's going to be civil protests in the country over Trump at some point. We haven't seen them yet. Unlike in Trump 1.0, we got them right away with the Women's March. And on the basis,
and then the Muslim ban.
The Muslim ban, but the Muslim ban, but really, I mean, the huge women's marches were the first, you know, right out of the gate. And I thought, well, there will be mass protests at some point. This is not one, by the way, but there will be. And the question at that point was, are you counting on option A? Donald Trump will say people have a First Amendment right to do this and will be restrained, or option B, there will be some kind of overreaction, some kind of deployment of military force, something like what we're seeing right now. As it happens, this is not a giant peaceful protest. It was a small time, tiny thing on Friday that the LA Police Department had well in hand, which then Donald Trump, being the arsonist that he is, decided to go in and say, oh, there's some small kindling over there. Let me pour some gasoline on that and see what kind of flames I can make. Presidential pyromaniac. He just, that's his deal. But I think that this reminds me, in addition to being predicted, it reminds me of the moment you cited a second ago, which is the moment, again, totally different in the sense that the George Floyd protests were radically different in tone, substance, content, justification, everything else. But Donald Trump at that time, in both Wisconsin and Minnesota and in Oregon and Seattle, he kept talking about.
And D.C.
And D.C. Well, first in those places, the D.C. one came a little bit after, but he was frustrated, that he was not able to deploy. He wanted to deploy troops. He wanted to deploy the National Guard. He, I think, may in a couple of those places made a little bit of a federal feint towards them. He said that famous thing where he cited when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Right. And then the thing happened in Washington where not only in Mike Bender's book, but other places, he said he wanted to shoot. Why couldn't we just shoot some of these protesters in the leg? And if it wasn't for Mark Esper, crucially, and Mark Milley, no doubt he would have done that. He was totally on his mind. And today he brought it up, not the shooting in the leg, but I should have gone into Minneapolis, he said today in his press availability. He's still thinking about that. And so given an opportunity, provoking an opportunity, now taking the opportunity, I just feel as though it's very redolent and reminiscent of that period. And the big difference, of course, as we pointed out a million times, there is no Mark Esper now.
Right.
There is no Mark Milley now. Yeah. What there is Pete Hegseth. There's a bidding war among Trump's advisors to be more reflexively loyal to Trump, to do what they think he's going to want. So they're all running around rather than saying, hey, the Constitution, posse comitatus. Can you imagine the words posse comitatus coming out of Hegseth's mouth? No. But, there's no restraints. There's no brakes. They're greasing the skids towards this conflict rather than pulling on the brakes. And I think it's scary.
So with the table set, General, where does that leave the military?
I think there's two important things that we've got to remember. It doesn't matter whether you are on the left, on the right, or the center. There's two key issues at stake here. One is the freedom of speech, which is being impeded and it's being stomped on right now. And everyone across the country, no matter what your party, has to understand that. The second one is, it's kind of interesting why this particular federal government is actually stomping all over states' rights whenever they espouse that local authorities should have the ability to take care of their citizens as they see best. So I think those are the two big takeaways for every single American, let alone the implications for our readiness and for the young men and women who are literally going to be side by side across a picket line, should we say, from their neighbors that they know, that perhaps they even came from those very areas. So this is a very, very dangerous and contentious situation. It is totally an inappropriate use of the National Guard, particularly where the governor asked for no help. That's something that just, from my position as the acting vice chief of the National Guard Bureau under President Obama, we would never have imagined ever doing this in this situation to impede free speech, to impede what, quite frankly, for the majority of the people, has been peaceful demonstrations.
Is it illegal? Is it an illegal order Trump has also mobilized 700 active duty Marines. Is that an illegal order?
So, no, these are not illegal orders to the best of my knowledge. I've seen the one for the National Guard. I've not yet seen the one for the Marines, although I've read about it online. These are not illegal. The question is, are they appropriate? That's what we're talking about. And as we can even take this one step further, DHS requested 20,000 National Guardsmen. It just shocks me that Congress is not stepping in and saying, let's see, 20,000 Guardsmen. That's the cost for that on an annual basis. I realize they're not being asked for it annually yet. It's somewhere between $2 billion to $3 billion. It's how this is going to happen is the Secretary of Defense is going to take the money from other programs already within the National Guard Bureau or from the Army predominantly, and they're going to fund these particular exercises. Unfortunately, that means readiness will drop. That means that you're going to have guardsmen potentially in other states that will not be able to attend drill by the end of the fiscal year and or annual training, which means that a lot of guardsmen that literally rely on their weekend warrior citizen soldier pay, they won't have that income for many guardsmen because the money is not there. Congress has got to step up and insist that they have the authority to fund these kind of operations.
If law enforcement or knowingly harbor undocumented immigrants, are you concerned that you could be arrested?
No, I'm not concerned that I could be arrested. And that's just an unbelievably irresponsible statement for somebody to make who I was on the phone with an hour before the statement was made. So he is referencing if I were to intervene, maybe hit a federal officer or something. It's just ridiculous. It's like the other comment that was made. Do you spend your time, responding to comments that really rob dignity out of the offices that they serve in?
If you've been on the phone with Homan or other administration officials, what is the level of coordination at this point?
Well, there's not coordination. I mean, I had one conversation with him, and again, I was trying to explain to him why we did not need federal troops in Los Angeles, and obviously, my conversation didn't go anywhere.
What do local business owners need to know if ICE shows up at their workplace?
Well, I think it's very important for people to know their rights. And when you're talking about business owners, they could be undocumented as well as their employees. But you don't have to cooperate. You can, remain silent. There's a know your rights, a series of things that individuals can do and business owners. But, you've seen pictures of people around the country. I saw a woman in a car, man in a car, and he was waiting for his attorneys, and ICE just broke the windows of his car and dragged him out. Now, we've not seen anything like that here in Los Angeles. I certainly hope that we do not. But what is normal practice, like if you are detained, you're allowed to see your attorney who is representing you, for your family to know where you are. This is not happening in this case.
Mayor, before I let you go, there is the immigration raids, which of course kicked off the unrest and the upheaval. People want to resist what is happening to their friends and their neighbors and other members of the community who are contributing in their community. And then there's the issue of the National Guard troops moving in, the Marines being deployed. What do you see as the stakes in this moment?
Well, the stakes in this moment is, number one, our preparation for next year, quelling the fear and the terror that goes through families, people not sure they should go to work, kids not sure they should go to school. It's the sense of uncertainty and fear that is rampant in the city right now. And so to me, what I say to Angelenos is that we absolutely have to stand together in a time like this. We do not want to allow anyone to divide us. We have a strong history of supporting immigrants, and I, as mayor, am going to do everything I can to keep Angelenos safe, regardless of why they came here, when they came here, or how.
You could see people with military experience, they are furious with Trump. And again, comments like this are rare. They're rare, and they should be rare. Like, even retired generals, right? Like, high-ranking military people. Like, I get why they're reluctant to generally be political, like, to be partisan. The military, I've talked about this. If your job is to, at least hypothetically, invade any country in the world at a moment's notice, and all of this and all that, like, the military is political, but it shouldn't be internally partisan, right? It should treat each of the parties generally as not the best thing or the worst thing for the military and all these sorts of things. And the reality is, Trump has made that impossible. Trump has made a lot of career civil servants, a lot of men and women who have given decades, generations of their life to the military. He's made them make a choice, and they have to comment. They have to, right? Like, you can't stay quiet here. And so when they're effectively saying, no, we would never do this, other presidents wouldn't have done this in this scenario. And what they say is that that's both Democrat and Republican. So Trump is basically forcing military people to say, I give up on Trump. Like, my normal career path would be to never comment partisanly on any president. Even after retirement. But that's what Donald's made me do. I have to speak out. Because as a military professional, what he's doing goes against ethics and common sense.